Welcome to the Teachers Talkin' podcast, hosted by Dustin and Ghazali Abdul Wahab. In this podcast, we discuss all things education and teaching, from innovative teaching methods to challenges to strategies and much, much more. In this discussion or roundtable-based podcast, we bring in educators from all around the world to talk about a variety of education topics so that we can support as many teachers as possible. We want this to be a place of inspiration, personal and professional development, and simply a place where we can elevate education together. Welcome to Teachers Talkin'. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Teachers Talkin'. I am Dustin, joined by my co-host Ghazali, and today we are diving into a topic that keeps on evolving, which is hybrid and blended learning. Post-pandemic, we have seen lots of different models really starting to come and go, but today we want to talk about things that actually work. And so to help us break this down, we are joined by Theresa McSweeney. She's taught every grade, K through 6, across the U.S. She's developed STEM programs and now sports teachers in integrating tech effectively. She's also diving deep into digital certifications and preparing for school leadership. So Theresa, welcome. Before we get into the models and strategies, can you tell us a little or give us a little quick snapshot about kind of your journey in education, and what's the path that brought you from the classroom to digital support?
Sure. So I started in elementary ed in second grade, and I lived there for a very long time. We moved several times to different areas across the United States. And that's when I started to grow a little bit. I started to teach kindergarten and fell in love with that age group. Then after my own kids were born, I kind of needed a shift. And so I moved up in the world to fourth grade, fifth grade, and then we moved again. And during that time, my career became a little more well-rounded because I couldn't hold a single job due to seniority. I kept getting bumped and moved around. So I tried out different positions in elementary schools, paraprofessional, playground duty for a moment. And then I was a math interventionist during a time when I was going back to school at Boise State to get my master's in curriculum and instruction with a focus in mathematical thinking for education. And so everything was aligned quite nicely. And then the pandemic hit while I was teaching kindergarten and applying a lot of those amazing math things that I was learning. And I fell in love with online learning. I loved the individual attention that I could give to kids and their families. I love the creativity, the amount of talking that we were able to do. Ironically, you think that it's so singular, but it became this really interactive thing. And then once that was over, I went back to the math intervention world, and I ended up moving and teaching sixth grade again, which really rocked my world because I had never gone up that high before in the elementary land. And that spurred me to make some changes. And our state has really amazing opportunities called externships. And so through our STEM Action Center, I was able, through grants, I was able to work in the tech industry over the summer and acquire these skills that I just reminded me of someone who I was when I was younger, who played video games and loved getting to type and play on the computer and do all these amazing things. So just over the years, developed that STEM ideology, integrated technology hard in the classroom, fell in love with AI, and planted some seeds. And now I am in this role, and I love it. Digital support specialist. I spend about half of my day doing help desk tickets, and I love them.
You don't hear that very often.
You don't. So I'm gonna get the shirt. Did you fill out a ticket?
Wow, that's really a wealth of experience you've had there.
Yeah.
I'm particularly interested about how you experienced the pandemic and how this shifted your perspective, of what school should look like, because it certainly did for me. When I had to go through the online learning experience, you loved it, but for me it was painful because I'm not tech savvy. See, so it was a big struggle. So I realized, oh, when all this is over, this is something that an area that I really need to work on. So that's where I went into deep into AI, yeah, because of the pandemic experience. But tell me, how did your experience during the pandemic shift your perspective on what schools should look like?
When the pandemic came around, I was teaching kindergarten and I was at a Title I school. And I would completely agree with you that there were two camps in this situation, right? There were people who absolutely loathed the online learning and others who just fell in love with it and had a great time with it. I was lucky enough to have a space in my house where I could set up a little tiny makeshift classroom. And so I brought home our calendar space. I brought home the stuffed animals and a lot of the YouTubers who do different animated funny things with the little finger puppets and stuffed animals became inspires for me to keep the kids engaged. I discovered that you could run multiple meets on a screen at one time. So if someone did not want to be in the same room with other faces, I could run an individual meet and kind of multitask. I was also lucky enough to have student teachers at the time, so we could parse the work, which is amazing when there's more than one set of hands in a classroom. That always helps. Um, but it became something that was on the family's time. I knew that I was still getting paid and had a job to do. And so I had that mindset. And I also had the mindset that these kids had not, because they were kindergarten, had not experienced school before. And during this time of difficulty and strife, and I don't know what their family situation is, but I know that I can do my best to give them a good, fun place to be. A lot of music, a lot of music. Because I do believe in that power, what music holds to bring communities together and just bring some healing. So, uh, yeah, just immerse myself in that world and really enjoyed it. We had a huge kindergarten end of the year party. It was fantastic. I will never forget that. It was fun. There was glitter and confetti. I was throwing it around. There's probably in the little makeshift space, I am sure that my husband and kids are like, oh gosh, there's more glitter.
That's wonderful. But when it hit, when the pandemic hit, it was like something that was quite, it was very quick. So how did you manage to pivot to online learning? Did you already know how to use all this Google Meet and splitting it into two rooms? And how do you learn all these things?
No, look at my background and my like jacket and hair. I am not afraid to take a chance. So I know my calculated risks. I always would tell my son is a bit of a wild one and active and could get hurt. And so I'd always take, is this a Band-Aid fix or is it a hospital visit? And that's a good metaphor because when you're in online learning, if something, oh, trust me, in my makeshift space, I had to buy many fuses because when it got really hot, I kept blowing out all the power. And so we had to learn that, oh, McSweeney's power went out again. Let's wait 10 minutes. She'll get a new fuse and we'll turn it back on. So I don't know. I just tend to have the spirit that I go into things with a really good attitude. And, you have to do it anyway. You may as well do it with a smile and try your best. So
And for those of you that are listening and not watching, Teresa's background is pickles, and so I like that you throw that up there and then say, yeah, I just take chances. No, it's really wonderful, and I love what you were doing with kindergartners. I mean, just try to keep kindergartners engaged during a time like that in online learning. I don't know, like I teach high school, so I don't even know what that would be like, but to be able to keep them engaged in that way and have that kind of energy, I just think is so admirable. So kudos to you for making that a fun learning space in a really difficult time.
Thank
Um,
you. I think to just say, I think your job's actually harder because they already knew what they were missing out on. And mine did not know what they were missing out on
yeah,
necessarily.
yeah. But
So
I think,
there,
and then
there were
that's
some
probably
advantages.
it's probably also why mine didn't show up a whole lot.
Makes sense. Yes.
So we had to do things a lot differently, where for us things were really based on asynchronous learning far more than the synchronous learning, and so
Yes.
that was posed a different challenge all in itself. But with that being said, I think, there can be often a lot of confusion between what's hybrid learning versus what is, a blended learning, or what do these models look like. How would you define what hybrid or blended learning is, and how do you see teachers using models like this?
Oh gosh, I think the operate. So this year, here's an example of how I could see that. I shifted from the classroom space to this digital support space. And in doing so, I had set up these sixth graders with a promise that we would raise trout in the classroom because our state allows us to do that. So it's I love that experience for them and with them. And the teacher who came in to take over the role, she was brand new, first job ever, right out of college. So now I'm asking her to run this fish tank and do all of these things. And in this role, I get to muck around and find out with all the tools. So I thought this is a perfect symbiotic opportunity. Let me help you so I can help them and it'll help me in this whole thing. So in doing so, in keeping charge of that scientific content for trout in the classroom, it gave me the opportunity to dig into a tool like Canva and start to create that blended learning experience where kids are in the classroom. They have a model that comes through as a digital copy of a slideshow or like a flipped idea where they're doing some of that work and learning on their own
Mhm.
through digital tools. That's what I think blended learning is. That hybrid approach feels more like a physical difference where from time to time kids are in a different physical space interacting with a digital tool. And then, of course, synchronous and asynchronous and remote, those seem a little bit clearer in their definition. Those blended and hybrid, I see how those can kind of flow between one another.
Mhm. Can you tell us about a time where maybe, whether through your own experience or even in this tech role, where you're working with other teachers, where you saw a blended or a hybrid model really like click for teachers and students, and what made that work?
Um, sure. I think one other example from especially this year, because I got to dig in to these classroom spaces so intentionally and watch kids interact with lessons that their teachers provided, plus lessons that I provided in a digital space. Um, a fourth and fifth grade space that I got to work in, we were trying Padlets and I would use different AI tools that our district either had or just allowed. We have a real autonomous policy, which is nice for teachers. So we have a lot of freedom to make the choices we need to make within parameters. And in doing so, we built because she's teaching a combo class. So what are her pain points? Science and social studies. So we built Padlets that represented the standards for her fourth graders for social studies and her fifth graders for science and push those out to kids in a digital format. But then I would show up on the days when they were using the digital tool and they were interacting with videos of me talking right to them in an individual screen way. But I was standing there with my laptop troubleshooting. And I even heard a kid say, "This feels like the pandemic. This feels like COVID." And I said, "That's great that it feels that way. Let's make it a new experience. Let's get a new COVID feeling about this world. Because look at us, we're in a digital format communicating right now. These kids are going to
Mhm.
have to learn how to do that." And so, in having this practice where I could push something out, test it, make sure clarity was there, which it often wasn't. We make a lot of assumptions when we build our lessons.
Mhm.
But then to be a physical presence and have them see their teacher and I collaborating in the same space with a tool that's already embedded in a platform digitally for them. And then to hear, of course, that comment, this feels like COVID. It's like, exactly. Yes. We're going to rewrite the script now. So
Wow, that's really interesting. I mean, and these are kindergarten kids. They're
this
re-
was a 4th and 5th grade classroom space. This was a
okay,
4th and 5th
focus.
grade classroom space. Yes.
Okay,
The
so
kindergarten experience was during COVID. This 4th and 5th grade experience was just now this year in like March through May, just for about 2.5 months. We were doing that.
all right. I'm interested to know, how do you integrate AI into your pedagogy with kids that are who are so young?
Oh, we need a lot of work with digital citizenship. We really need a lot of work with digital citizenship. We ran a little learning cycle and discovered that kids are very good at saying digital citizenship. Digital citizenship means I'm a nice person online. And that's about all they know. And they don't know the safety piece. They are just willy-nilly throwing their information out there. This classroom was plugging in dates to ChatGPT saying that they were 75 years old and 63 years old. And then they were lying to get around the age parameters. So we had to shut it down because they don't understand the background of what is happening creatively. We're still playing with the tools. And so you have a board game, it's pretty benign. It's independent of itself. A game like Sorry, right? It just sits there. It's not going anywhere. It doesn't collect your data. Nothing's happening with it. And now we're letting kids play in AI, and it can be very dangerous without some parameters. And so I think setting them up to really understand from a digital citizenship perspective, just maybe not, I mean, we don't want to scare them to that degree, but they need to have some awareness of just how sideways things can get. Probably keep it developmentally friendly, based on their age, the different things they're exposed to, what could go wrong. But there's a lot that we have to just be aware of, I feel like, from a safety point of view and digital citizenship before we start putting it into their hands. Because those chat bots that kids are interacting with, and podcast tools and video tools,
Yep.
those are high communication tools, and we want to make sure they're communicating things safely.
All right. Can you tell us a bit more about all these tools, platforms, setups? What do you see as must-haves for making these models successful?
Well, that's a really good question. Oh boy. I think, what do I see is, I think having this autonomy and letting teachers get to have choice of the tools within someone said it really great the other day. They said, we value procedure over policy. And I think that is really smart, because if we start to put so many rules and restrictions on the choices that people have, then it's the beauty of what's available becomes moot point. Pick on Common Core for a minute. It's like when they're like, oh, we're going to let kids build their own diagrams, make their own thinking, and then workbooks have predetermined boxes where kids are supposed to fill in the way they were thinking. Like, no, let's not make the same mistake. Let's give some openness. I think the must-haves are the tools that don't stress you out. They're the ones that you resonate with and that bring you some joy, and you feel like the return on your investment of time is worth it. So for me, I love to play around in the different GPTs based on need. I have this new little device. I'm a little bit of I'm really digging into this AI piece. I bought the new Friend that I think it's going to be powered by Claude. It's a little wearable necklace device that interacts. Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Something like this. Yeah.
Yes, a friend of mine has that. Yes, something. I'm so excited.
You will be. It's great.
I am very excited. So I think I just attended an AI workshop at Boise State, and they're taking that 80%, 20% rule, 80% AI with 20% human. I feel like there's several layers to that. I think for some people, it might be reverse. Some people might only want 20% AI in their life. There's a lot of teenagers too who are coming forward saying they're worried about the environmental impacts and the long-lasting mental health effects, and so they're approaching it with some trepidation, which is great because some of us need people like that to keep us safe too, and they need the explorers, the pioneers, to make sure that they're navigating new ways. So it's a balance. But I do think that 80-20 can shift, and Boise State's new idea is a 10-80-10 approach, which is also really cool. So that gives the 10 to the human, 80 to the AI, 10 back to the human, so that it develops that understanding, the pedagogy, that it's a cycle. So I think it really just depends on what works for you. 'Cause there are
80
so many tools, but safety first.
Yeah. The 80 sounds like a big number. What do you do with the 80% AI in the classroom?
What do I do with 80% in the classroom?
Mm.
I spend a lot of my time getting organized and building templates personally. I see other teachers doing things like building their PowerPoints. We have a lot of resources that are already made available to us as PDFs and uploads. A lot of the open educational resources that we use. So we're allowed to take those, modify them. We use Brisk in our district. And
Yeah,
so
that's good.
it is good.
Mhm.
I've spent a lot of time trying to understand those GPTs. So I learned that behind the scenes, it's powered by different large language models, which means it's going to give a more varied output, which is really good to know. I think I just lost my train of thought, but that's okay.
Have you started using Notebook LM and the Google suite of AI stuff?
Yes, I'm using Notebook LM. Absolutely. We had our IETA conference here in Idaho, and then I just attended iSTEM and all the different, oh my goodness, I'm getting my ISTE certification and starting a principal all sorts of things. I'm just diving in. But all of those conferences that I attend, I like to build those notebooks. And then, of course, add the policies because I want to make sure I'm staying in the boundaries that, FERPA, COPA, got to stay in my boundaries. District standards, ISTE standards, add those to the Notebook LM. And then I love podcast form. So I really enjoy taking the information that I learn at a conference, plugging it all in. They even do like little bios of the presenters from time to time. So you can copy and paste that and put it in your Notebook LM. And then the presenter, depending on what platform the conference uses, it'll hold some of the presenters' websites and that kind of thing. So I upload that. Then I just walk around and listen to the information and take a second time to digest a podcast that's put together from all the work. Can often pick up on some misconceptions or learn a few things that you didn't already know. So that's kind of nice.
You're using so many different tools. So awesome. I'm going to go back a little bit because you piqued my interest when you were talking about going into the classroom and kids watching videos of you. And so I'm curious because I'm assuming that you learned about, making instructional videos kind of like throughout the pandemic. So I'm just kind of curious, like, how did you learn how to make good instructional videos? Sort of like what in your mind does a good instructional video look like? So I think that's an important component when you're talking about a hybrid or a blended learning model.
That's a great question too. I think I've just taken a lot of feedback from students over the years. If you notice that they start to turn it off and zone away, then I know, ooh, that format didn't work out so well. I get a lot of teacher feedback. I know from being kind of a TikTok explorer that I I see a lot of really short snippet videos that have focused visual, it's very everything's intentional in the video, just like you would if you were writing a paper. And so spending a lot of time using, as ironically, as few words as possible to get the best image out there is essential. Making sure that someone who maybe doesn't know anything about your content can view your work. One amazing trick is using those GPTs to critique your work and ask you questions and give you some design feedback. You can often download a PowerPoint, slides, your Canva as a PDF, and then asking ChatGPT to help make it better, more engaging. What am I not seeing? What questions should I still be asking the students? What questions do you have for me? Always ask the GPT that. And it helps refine that design process a little bit.
Awesome. Thanks. Thank you for sharing that. I'm very big also in just blended learning. And I went through a program during pandemic called Modern Classrooms Project, in which that's where I learned how to do good instructional videos, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the things that you're talking about are also things that I'm really passionate about doing. And so I'm always just really curious how people have developed those different skills. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Learning from our peers is, I just watch and learn and pilfer as needed.
Which it makes me wonder, in your opinion, when it comes to training and getting teachers on board with hybrid and blended learning, what do you see that's been working from training? What's missing from PD sessions? Like, how do you see, teachers being trained to be able to sort of shift from traditional teaching into something that suits our students, better?
I think to pick up on that peer point, we, learning from our peers, we have a really strong foundation of teachers who are already doing that model. They just kind of do it in a silo so that our general ed population isn't seeing this amazing work that these teachers are doing. We have an online school in and I'm talking in a silo in my own district because that's all I could speak to right now. I don't know generally what's happening. We have 53 schools to choose from, so it feels like a good pot of schools to talk about. So within that, there are several different models where that blended learning is happening. We have kids who will log into a Meet once a day for their math lessons. We have kids who will log in once a day for a CTE lesson. And so I really feel like tapping into the teachers who are already doing these things all the time, they're a huge wealth of knowledge. I feel like using some of the pedagogies that our SPED population is using would be really helpful because there's a huge push for greater differentiation in the general ed classroom. And so using the technologies and ideologies of that level of differentiation that happens in those spaces, tapping into those peers, we need to know what they're doing and what works and how kids are going to break it when we first try. That's really, what are those first misconceptions and problems that are going to come out so the teachers go in defense, because defense wins games, right? So let's be ready to go.
I like that you took that also just into kind of a direction around differentiation, because that's one of the other things that I've been thinking about is I think both there's positives and negatives that come along with blended and hybrid learning models when it comes to like learning equity. So in your opinion, how do we make sure that students who are like most at risk don't fall through the cracks when we're doing this? And then, I don't know, maybe you can tell us a story about a time in which, you've been seeing tech being able to level the playing field and bring people together rather than divide.
Sure. I think our people most at risk are the ones who have no access at all because they have no idea. So we have rural populations, we have cultural beliefs, we have probably others that, things I'm not even aware of that exist where people have no access at all. And that's a huge issue because then there's no learning happening there, and that greatly widens the divide. What was your second question?
Oh, I was just wondering if you could tell us a story about maybe a time in which how tech was bringing people together rather than separating people.
Gotcha. Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Okay. Yeah, a couple different times actually. We just got last day of school. We got in. I'll start with the kindergarten ones first. The Indy cars. They're by the Sphero company. So cool. If you don't know what those are, go check them out. They're all over the STEM, TikTok, and YouTube. They're really cool little devices. Two little friends who just were kind of not fitting into a space anywhere when they were using these and not wanting to share. And it's the last day of school. So for some people, the anxieties are running high because they know it's the last day of school. It's not happy for all the friends on that day. And lo and behold, after this is a long time, after half an hour of struggling with these indies, these two friends somehow found each other. And then they became a great partnership, and they were the last ones to put everything away. They were giggling. They didn't speak the same language. They were not in the same little friend group at all. But they came together and just had a nice little time playing with each other and, sharing the love of this little indie robot car and working through those struggles. And then another really powerful time was in 6th grade with Minecraft education. We would spend 15, 20 minutes a day, no lie, sometimes 30 on Friday, often 30 on Friday, in a Minecraft land. And I got a lot more deeply immersed into Minecraft education, where a teacher can have more control over the world that the kids are playing in. So Minecraft actually has pre-built worlds with codes. So kids know, I'm learning, but in Minecraft, how to log into a world and start to play together in the same space. And so through my lack of knowledge, but desire to learn something new, and then the kids being so already engaged in Minecraft and having this desire to teach me something that's very empowering for them.
Mhm.
Kids who would never, and they're 6th grade in a school that doesn't have a lot of transiency. So most of them have been together for 7 years of their, some of the most pivotal times of their life. So they have stories that run deep and run hard, and you're like, come on, guys, let it go. And Minecraft was able to let some of those stories and those barriers go. And they were talking together. They were communicating with each other. Two of them that had never interacted started playing these hand games together that had nothing to do with Minecraft. But they were communicating in a way, the same language, same space, and then that empowered them to teach me something. But kids that never would have come together ever were now starting to work together and collaborate in this space. And that was really cool to see happen.
Well, that's really a powerful story, and I like the
Yeah.
way that your school is using tech to bring people together, even teachers involved. So it seems like you're really doing a lot. You're learning a lot. You're going for certifications, your externships. You're prepping for a lot of admin work. So what pushes you forward? What drives you as a teacher?
Probably a little bit of crazy, which is good to
A
have.
lot of it for me, yes, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of humor, good attitude, a lot of coffee, tons of coffee. Yes. And I'm just a nerd. I love to learn. I've always been like that. I was the teacher's pet. I was the kid who said they were going to be a teacher when they grew up, and I did. And so this is just who I am. And I really like being here. I like learning so many new things. We just finished iSTEM camp, and I walked away with 30 microbits from the STEM Action Center in the state of Idaho. Thank you so much. That's the plug,
Wow.
because That's so generous and so amazing. And first we were only supposed to get 20, and then they brought in another 10, and I literally teared up because it's been so many years of attrition and not getting things. And then now, to have a gift like that is amazing. But I don't know, the wonder of new things is, it's something that is very deeply personal to me. It's who I am, and I like being
Yeah.
that person.
Yeah,
I like to not sit still up in the brain.
yeah, I totally get you. Yeah, I understand exactly where you are. So with that in mind, what's your vision for what schools should look like, could look like in 5 years' time, if we really embrace this hybrid, blended, tech-supported, model the right way? What do you see the trajectory of education and the education landscape of the future? What does it look like?
Oh, 5 years. Well, I know for sure that there are some places that are already utilizing online tutors in the classroom. There are schools in the South, because I applied for and tried, but I just did not have the bandwidth to do the work of online intervention work. So there are companies out there that already offer teachers jumping in an online virtual format with students while they're in a classroom space to provide intervention based on their need. I'm not sure what the funding or anything like that looks like. I think that's probably the most immediate shift that would happen. I think in 20 years' time, it would be really cool to be able to fill out those help desk tickets and get the choice that you want for that semester. You have teachers with areas of expertise, and imagine if they could just hone in on one thing and go a mile deep and an inch wide instead of the reverse of that, and really hone in on their craft and then provide those lessons in a virtual format for students of all ages. Wouldn't that be cool? But I think we could do a
Yeah.
lot more sharing and blending and just be a little more creative with the tool. But I think
Oh no.
Oops. Oh, she's
there
back.
we are.
There you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we are. More of that blended learning approach. There we go. More blended. And probably
you.
more hybrid too. Oh no. Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Yep,
We got
you're
you.
good.
Crazy internet.
Yep. No.
See, without access, there's nothing. Without access, there is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think about we interviewed somebody at one point who was in Mexico, like what was it during tornadoes, right, Ghazali? And like his
Yeah,
internet was all over
hurricane
the
season
place.
or something.
Hurricanes, yeah. I don't even remember what natural disaster was happening, but it was knocking out his internet left and right. So
Yep.
Theresa, what before we close things out, what would you say is one thing that you wish every school leader or teacher knew about hybrid and blended learning?
Kids love it. And kids can do it, and so can you. It's fun, it's engaging. You're looking directly at their face. When their camera's on, we've been looking at each other's face the whole time. Like there's something about that, sometimes when you're in the classroom, you're not. And I just think it's powerful to be able to have that kind of connection with people. I think you can do it. You can do it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today and having this conversation. Again, we talk a lot about a lot of different tech things and AI things, but you're bringing a lot of new things to the table that we haven't talked about before, which is really, really wonderful. And you just have a really great kind of energy and vibe around you with what you're doing. And so we just really, really appreciate you being here and sharing your stories with us and sharing your knowledge with us and your visions. So thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for giving me a voice. I really appreciate it.
Ghazali, as always, thank you for joining us, and to all of our listeners.
My pleasure.
We would love to know what's your experience with hybrid and blended learning. Tag us and send us your stories. And as always, subscribe, rate, and share the show so we can continue to reach as many educators as we can. If you are interested in being a guest on the Teachers Talking podcast, you can sign up with the link in our show notes. You don't have to be an expert in anything, just passionate and ready to talk about education. So again, thank you so much for being here and joining us. Keep teaching, keep learning, and keep talking. And we will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.